Nissan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Eddie. Again, my name is Nissan, and I'm representing the New York People's Assembly, new political party of New York City that's one for the people. Today, I'm going to be presenting our governance structure, which we use is called Sociocracy. So these are Sociocracy essentials. The goal here is to try to quickly explain how Sociocracy is different from the traditional methods of governance and also how this gives more power to the people. So this is a brief introduction to sociocracy and how it differs from traditional organizational structures. First, let's get through the traditional corporate structure that entrenches power at the top. The idea of society is to decentralize that power. As you can see, corporations work to serve only a small group of people. They make decisions at high levels, and they work down below, going down level by level. Workers don't really exercise or have any control over the decisions of the corporation. You know, the hierarchy in a traditional company is first the shareholder, then the board of directors, then your C-suite, which is your CFO, CEO, and COO. Then you have the upper management, followed by middle management, and then finally down to the staff, which has absolutely no say in the matter. The few leading the many. The ideal setup for the most corporate entities is to have the few leading the majority of workers. Direction of corporations comes from smaller and smaller groups. This leads to a culture of self-pretend at the top of the organization, and ideas are often, viewed threatening to their long-term goal. It's not good, so it threatens their power. The few are leading the many, and they are abstract from day-to-day operations of the organization because they don't really do the work, so they have no. So the sociocracy structure is fundamentally completely different. It flips that upside now. With sociocracy, the power is decentralized by spreading out decisions into groups called circles that operate semi-autonomously. Circles focus on narrow scopes to complete specific tasks that help the organization reach the aim or the main purpose. Circles cross-link with delegates to facilitate two-way communication between them. So that way each circle knows what each other circle group is doing. Circles are completely horizontal. That means they're not top down, they share equal power. And they are linked through delegates. Circles spawn out of necessity. They spawn organically. Members of an existing circle identify work that needs to be done. They draft a proposal to accomplish that work, and they get volunteers to fill those roles. The mandate is the key to the circle's existence. It needs to have a specific aim. All mandates operate in conjunction with the aim of the entire organization. So they all have to comply with this single thing. Circle formations. Circles form organically. A circle is a horizontal authorized by mandate on the aim within a specific domain. It can only have power in a certain field. Circles are delegated from the parent circle. So it's big circle into small circles. The mandate is the document that references to why the circle needs to spin up, why it needs to exist, and it must contain the aim, domain, and membership, and a process for review. The aim clearly defines what the circle will work on to further the aim of the entire organization. The domain is a clear list of circle activities and decision-making authority, the sphere of influence they have in making decisions. Specific to ensure productivity does not overlap with other existing circles. Leadership and members, initial membership of the circles, including the people filling required leadership roles. And then the review process, a defined way for a circle to report back its work and the frequency of said reports. After a circle forms, it has a specific purpose to follow to ensure it fulfills its aim. The leadership role facilitates the circle's operation by conducting its meetings and delegating tasks to its members. The assigned delegates foster communication between the linked circles. And we have 5 specific roles in sociocracy. The required leadership roles is 1, a delegated coordinator, as responsible for ensuring the circle is acting in accordance with its aim. It also acts as the link between the parent and the child of the spawned circles. Then you have the delegate. The delegate is responsible for participating in both circles, the parent and the child, and it supports the communication between the child to the parent. The facilitator is responsible for setting up agendas for each meeting and conducting the meetings with the governing principles of sociocracy in mind. They'll be similar to a chair. Secretary is responsible for collecting, organizing, storing, and proposing and publishing the meeting minutes of each circle's meeting and additional work product of materials produced by their circle. So basically, they deal with all the documentation and whatnot. And then finally, we have a required working member, because all these other 4 roles are, going to be incredibly busy just running the meetings and the actual circle activities that you need a worker be, per se. So, we one dedicated worker. Each circle requires at least one of the work members to act as a task lead responsible for completing the tasks that's actually assigned. These tasks are defined by the circle's domain and their mandate. Checklist for spawning a circle. Before a parent circle is authorized to child or delegated circle, this checklist must be fulfilled by the proposed mandate. 1, is the aim clear? How will the circle work benefit the entire organization? Is the aim aligned with the organization's aim? Is the domain clear? What authority is the circle asking for, and what decisions will it make? The leadership roles defined. Who is responsible for the circle operation and adhering to its mandate? And the membership defined. Who are the working members? How will the circle accomplish its task? And finally, report evaluation timeline defined. Has the mandate defined how often reports are given to the parent circle? When will the mandate be reviewed to ensure that its aim has been fulfilled? Meeting process. Sociocracy runs meetings differently than traditional parliamentary authorities like Robert's Rules of Order. Meetings typically fall into 2 categories and serve different purposes. You have the policy meeting, meetings that are conducted to receive reports, explore, and decide on proposals made by working members of the circle. Proposals are akin to motions in other meeting structures, but rather than saying yay or nay to each motion or amendment outright, we hold rounds of discussion to explore and integrate objections before making informed decisions about consent. Then you have the operational meetings. These are meetings where work gets done. Working members report on the task previously assigned, and then the group decides on the necessary steps, and any new tasks are assigned to the lead, and the circle repeats until all the work is completed. There's a proposal process. Once the discussion tunes the proposal and leads to informed decision about consent. So the first thing we have is to have the understanding. We need to understand what we're talking about. So what is the context? What are the underlying needs? What are we trying to do here? And explore. It's picture forming, proposal tuning. It's like we're crafting, getting it nicely needed down. And then you have the integrate objections. So people might not like something, so you want to understand what they're trying to get at and see if we could walk around those objections and address any concerns that anybody might have. And then try to track it and put it in there. And finally, we have the consent process, which we make sure is we have a round to clarify any questions, make sure everybody understands what's being proposed. Then we have an exploratory round where we make reactions of what's being proposed, so everybody gets their opinion. And then lastly, they decide. They have a round to decide whether they consent or object to the proposal. Rounds lead to informed decisions. Informed decisions lead to approval by consent. Versus consensus. By consensus, I must convince you that I am in the right. By consent, you ask whether you can live with the decision. Members discussing an idea in consent-based governance commonly use the threshold of if idea is good enough to try and safe enough, good enough for now and safe enough to try. This is a clear distinction because it ensures that all objections are based on the aim of the circle and not organizations, not emotion. Rounds are essential. During a round, a facility engages each working member of the circle to participate in the topic at hand. Each member is chosen to speak in turn until all voices have been heard. Members do not interrupt with retort or interjections with rebut while other members are speaking. All members have equal footing and opportunity to participate before a member speaks for a second time. Inclusive decisions. In some meeting structures, participants are required to step forward to speak about items on the agenda. This leads to valid feedback being left behind because some members may not feel comfortable speaking out on their own. Opinions in the minority are often left out. When everyone is given the floor equally, people relax and speak their mind with less resistance, so little resistance. We want to hear the minority opinion. Minority opinion is very important. The focus is on the minority opinion. Any member may raise an objection, or consent is only granted when there are no remaining objections to a proposal. All objections are heard and discussed in rounds. Amendments to proposals are integrated during the process. If a proposal leads to an impasse, that means a consent that's not gained due to a remaining paramount objection, the proposal is sent for an additional tuning before being raised. Now, a paramount objection is one of two things. It's going to be explained later. If a proposal does not receive consent, the member bringing proposals should not be discouraged. Tuning is a process where a working member meets with others outside of the meeting to workshop their proposal. It is also possible that a proposal is ill-timed, and waiting for the appropriate time to bring it up may grant consent with minimal additional tuning. So are we ready to give this a try? Our party is using Sociocracy to self-govern. You are empowered to participate. To help you understand the possibilities of Sociocracy, we have compiled a visual aid to show potential scale of the party organization. So here we have the central circle that's in the middle, and all circles form around that central circle, and those circles in themselves have a round of circles. Each delegate circle forms organically based upon the needs of the parent circle, and our party structure, central structure, is the main governing body. Delegate on the responsibility will be become parent circle to enhance productivity by having now aims. Small and small groups of people doing the work, and then going out to the broader collective. When you got once a location, empowerment. As the member of the party, as a member, you're empowered to be integral in the part of the success. You empowered to pull new ideas and circles as necessary. You are empowered to check and balance everything the party does. You are empowered to feel validated through your participation. We care as basically we covered most participation. Not donations, participation. Okay, those are some additional resources. And let me stop showing that. Now I want to pay attention to a quick introduction. So Sociocracy was founded in the 1980s. All participants have a voice, no one's ignored. Continuous empowerment of every proposal. It's a flat organization with interlinked circles. Circles are double linked for information flow, and elections are by consent. Selection without objection. There's again the Sociocracy circle, the delegate circles. Circles basic governance is the purpose, the domain, the clarity to define membership roles and the terms. And then the roles, we got secretary, facilitator, delegator, coordinator, and the member. Also, we have ad hoc roles, filled as needed as tasks are defined by each circle. Now, as you can see, there's a representation of the double link. You have the parent circle where the coordinator goes in as a delegated circle. And then from the delegated circle, you have the delegate to the parent circle. So consent basis for this information. Every circle has an aim for each circle member. An objection means I can't achieve the circle's aims like this. Decisions are made if there's no objections. So we have three layers. We have what I would love to do, your personal preference, your idea. What may not be your idea, but what I'm okay to work with, what I can tolerate. It's like, this is not how I would do it, but I can live with it. And then finally we have, I can't do what you asked me to do. I cannot work like this. Okay. Now, like I said, there's two types of paramount objection. This is type A paramount objection, where you cannot do the work. Consent reach via rounds, we explained that already. These are some additional Sociocracy sources. Oh, what's my power? Oh, and I didn't see what it's like. I must mess the slide with the paramount objection. The second paramount objection is if this is against the circle's aim. If the proposal is being made that's against the circle's primary aim, then it is ways for a paramount objection. So here's the sociology pros and cons as we've seen so far. Pros, it allows everybody to be heard. Anybody likes to be heard. The only problem is it's a much slower process because you have a lot more people. The more people you have, the more time it takes for everybody to have their voices heard. So it's much slower. It's excellent for small groups so far. Very little problems with small groups, but it struggles with scaling. So once you get to the 15 to 18 range, it becomes harder to manage and becomes less effective. It empowers everyone to take action. Does everybody have not only have a say, but in order to actually to give you, if you don't have to keep asking permission, it just empowers you to do work yourself. But this also allows for a single person to essentially filibuster, by raising a paramount objection or continuously talk forever, and if that's not addressed. It makes for very deliberative writing. You have a lot of voices in writing, and you get to very specific language because we look for clarity. But it does not do well when you're given multiple options, as proposals only one proposition out of many, and so the first person who proposes has the power. And normally what would happen would be, if you have an objection, they'll normally ask you, do you have a counter proposal? Do you have your own idea? It brings people together on common issues, but it gets hung up when you have controversial topics. So on topics where people agree, not much of a problem. When people disagree, it's going to take a while. And then you got the decentralization of power. It prevents a single point of failure from happening. So that way, if one of the circles is compromised, it does not compromise the whole structure. The problem is the weakest link is the coordinated delegates, as they require to be in multiple meetings, both for the pound and the child circle. They essentially double up the work, and as they join more circles, that work exponentially rises. So that becomes a point of failure there. And they're the only ones that share information between the circles. And before I go on, I'd like to ask, does anybody have any questions? Any questions at all?
How do I become a circle?
You become a circle by going to the central circle and stating that you have a need for the circle, in which you would draft a mandate. Once you draft the mandate would then be reviewed by that central circle or by the parent circle. And if that mandate is accepted, then you would form the circle.
And where is the central?
The central circle is the start of the organization.
Okay.
The core of the organization.
And that started, right?
Yeah, that'd be the seedling group. That'd be the people that first come together to do work.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? So what I just shared with you was New York's Sociocracy. And what I'd like to show you now is an alternative version of Sociocracy, a hybrid version used by the People's Party of Washington. This is their proprietary D3 model. So this is D3, dynamic deliberative democracy. It's a combination between a hybrid between representative democracy and sociocracy. As you can see, it's a power structure inside a circle that's broken up. Inside you have the interest representation wing, the organization representation wing, and geographic representation wing, all in the center of the state committee, state organizing committee, coordinating committee, I'm sorry. Okay, it's consent-based, where most of their meetings do consent-based governance. They have circles are working groups, and circles formed by identifying what needs to be done, and which undertake, and meet together to assume responsibility to accomplish it. Existing circle identifies a need to form a new circle and fills it. One of the things that makes this unique is instead of having just a central circle, they have a coordinated circle where all the coordinators from the other delegate circles form a separate circle called the coordinator circle. Party basics hub, the initial hub of working members would be the meeting messaging, the hub development actions, organization infrastructure, regenerative culture, outreach, onboarding IT candidates, administration, platform, and governance. As members take on different roles of the hub circle, will meet as a group, and the individuals meet in parent circle, and their chose work until the local circle can develop. Here we get our first look at these are the roles and outlines of the people doing them. Chair is Mark Mixon, vice chair is Jamin Mason, and the treasurer is Rebecca McNeil. And you got all these other people filling up the roles. Now, what's unique about the D3 model is that it has a multi-linking system. Okay, it doesn't have just the dual link. It'll link 1, coordinated leaders of voluntary circles meet to share information. Link 2, delegates represent the parent circle of the group, or the CC joins the circle. Link 3, the regenerative culture working delegate to other working groups for facilitation members, development, and education. And link 4 is cross mandate circles are formed of members from each working group. And finally, the 5th is a continuous mandate improvement process. So as you can see how links 1, 2, 3, and 4 operate. This is a very comprehensive thing, so I'm just skipping through a lot of it because I don't want to take my time. Okay, so you got the continuous mandate improvement linking methods, circle working groups, draft mandates, parent group discusses and consents. And you got quarterly reports, rep reviewing the joins of mandate improvement, convention mandate of circle, mandates reviewed by other working groups annually, and SC mandate feedback circle. We use the circle working group structure to provide access to any members wishing to participate and provide voice and vote to people based on not just their geographical location, but also by their essential communities of their immutable traits and interests and their chosen work within the party organization. We are a consent-based organization builds community through hearing all the voices and deliberating together continuously for improving and communication links by defaulting to rank direct democracy in board representation. Decision maximizes the representation of voice of all. So first they hear all the voices and then they have an actual vote, which is different than democracy. The wing of the organization has 2 elements: regional operational hub and organization working group. So they're split up into different wings. There's 3 wings in each of these groups. So you have the geographic wing, the interest representation wing, and the organization wing. And this all ends up in the golden triangle of the stake organizing committee, which is the mission guiding circle, the operation coordination circle, and the public advisory circle. The public advisory circle is an outside recommendation group to the public, so they can give advice to the board circle. The operation coordination circle is just, again, group of coordinated circle that will come and delegate each one. And then finally, there's a mission guidance circle at the top. And these are the main leadership circle. Okay, that was a lot. Any questions?
Who figured this out? Was it a group or an individual?
This is the form of the People's Party of Washington. This is their system.
Oh, okay.
It's actually in effect right now.
It's in effect right now. Okay.
Yes.
And that's Jamin.
Yes, Jamin, Mark Mixon, and Rebecca McNeil. Any other questions?
Nissan, I'm curious about like your experience, working within this structure. Like, what is it? What is it like on the ground?
I can't really speak for D3 because I've only been to 2 Washington meetings, and I don't have enough experience inside Washington's actual structure to make an informed say of my opinion yet.
Yeah.
It is far more, I mean, it is a very comprehensive system. And as far as I can say, hey, have got work done. They are officially registered organization. They have a 501c3 that is set up. So it is in fact working. That's as best I can say so far. As far as regular sociocracy, I've been in many meetings in sociocracy meetings, and many of the pros and cons I listed again were from personal experience.
Right.
It is a much friendly environment. It's much easier once you actually get into it. It does take a while though, because of the deep indoctrination of the top-down system is so ingrained that it does cause a bit of dissonance when you're trying to operate outside in that circle, and it takes a time to learn and time to get used to it. I often found myself trying to ask somebody for permission, like trying to find who I need to ask permission to do something for, instead of just being empowered to go do it myself. And then someone said, "Hey, I did this. How do you like it?" And you wouldn't continue doing this. So it took a while. It took maybe a good 1 or 2 months to like
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
So once again, sociocracy is still kind of a newer system. It was conceived over like 200 years ago, but it's only been recently implemented about 40 to 20 years. So a little longer than that, but so it's still relatively new in human history, in human society. It's the first horizontal structure of power other than the direct top-down structures that we're all used to.
Say, I'm curious about the parent-child relationship. Is that like a new group forming and then they become autonomous at some point?
So child circles, or what we call delegated circles, spawn out of like a need to basically hand down more tasks. So if certain tasks need to be delegated downward, and for a specific purpose, they'll get ever more specific, then you would send people to delegate to do that particular task, and they'll have their own circle. So for example, you have a tech circle, right? And then there's different roles inside tech. Tech covers a very swath of things, from administration to technical support to maintenance. So each one of those would have their own subcircle, be a group dedicated specifically for administration, and then there'll be another delegated circle specifically for maintenance, and another technical circle for technical support.
So this is an opportunity for many people to become connected through task and service.
That's correct, yes.
And
Each one will then be, delegated the authority to handle their sphere of influence, so they don't have to continuously go back and forth to like actual information or something. They're just empowered to do it. Like if the IT support, you just send the people to IT support, and people IT support figure out how they best do their job. They're not dictated how they do their job. In sociocracy, a lot of times what I find is that when people interact, the longer they interact, the clearer things get. And I find a lot of times a lot of people be disagreeing, but their disagreements are actually not really a disagreement. They're both agreeing to do different things, but they end up talking past each other because they have a different understanding of what each other is saying. And on the other flip side of that, I've also had conversations where people agree to something, and they tend to agree to it because it sounds correct. But then when put into practice, they really this is not really what they thought they agreed to. So it's very important to first give a clarifying. That's why it's so important to do clarification on what you're actually talking about. And then it goes to whole deprogramming, and depending on what the belief is or what the topic is, it's going to take a long time for deprogramming. I mean, we've seen this happen, a very famous black guy who went and deprogrammed a lot of Nazis. Like I said, I find the biggest thing is exposure, and it seems like we have an internal thing due to our tribal nature, that as we get going more and more exposure, people slowly get adopted into the tribe, because initially when people meet, they're like two separate tribes, but then as they have exposure, they'll start getting on the same link, and then that way they start seeing each other's side, and then it comes there. So I think it's like this, just my opinion. I'm not a college educated on this particular subject, but the way it appears to me is that once we get more attached and bring them and seeing as part of your tribe, then all those other things like start to go away, and those barriers get breaking down. And a lot of stuff has just to deal with through indoctrination, because a lot of people have a belief, or believe they have a belief. I better say that way. And they don't really know what the belief is. It's more of an identity. I say this from personal experience. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, and I had to say I truly didn't understand. I thought I did understand, but I truly did not understand what being a Roman Catholic is. I remember one day when I went to school, it was high school, and they had a special guest come into school and actually take us to different religious places, and to learn about the religions and stuff like that. And the thought of you being able to change your religion was a foreign thought to me, because I thought you're born into religion, like that was an identity. So once I went and actually was exposed to all the other religions and look at all the different types of thoughts and views and stuff like that, then it opened me up. And the one that really spoke out to me was Buddhist religion at one point, because I was having problem classifying that as a religion. It was like, this is more of a way of thinking, a way of thought. And because the Buddha, it's not technically a god, because he was an actual man. The Sautama Gupma, which is the Buddha, was a man. In fact, was basically born to royal or noble family, and he went out, and he was apparently prophesied to one day become either a great king or a great religious leader. And his father, being the king, wanted him to be king, so he tried to keep the Buddha away from all the outside world and just train to be a king. That didn't actually end up happening. Gupma actually did go out to the outside world and found all the suffering, and then went out to find out how to best live life. And then that's all of Buddhism is his method of finding the best way to live. So I'm like, that's more of a philosophy than a religion to me, because a religion is just like a belief in like gods, that have certain rules for some arbitrary reason, instead of you going out and being empowered to like find your own way of living, and this is like a guide to how to do it. So that's my own personal experience. I now have my own years of thinking about it, so that I have my own thoughts and beliefs, very complex things.
I'm curious that you live in New York City and you're very connected to the Washington People's Party. And I know that Brian sees the people in New York as he drives up and down the coast. I'm just curious what your relationship is between the groups.
Oh, well, that's easy. You see, we met People's Party of Washington through the UPA, and Mark actually came to our meetings, and is the one that suggested sociocracy to and brought the idea of sociocracy to the New York, what was the New York People's Party is now the New York People's Assembly. And we were actually working on bylaws at the time. And we had the standard top-down bylaw structure. And one of the main topics, the topic that I was really concerned with, is the idea of holding accountability and having accountability mechanisms built into bylaws in this top-down system, holding power to account. So when he brought up the concept of sociocracy, it's kind of like threw everything out the window, because it's like, well, we have a system that don't have accountability problem because it doesn't have a power concentration system. So we don't have to worry about power getting concentrated if we could keep it, decentralized. Much like I was like the idea of decentralized finances from crypto. Also a big kind of old-fashioned technocrat which likes decentralization. So it really spoke to me. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Eddie, for having me on and having me have this presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope it was eye-opening, and I hope it was entertaining.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd really appreciate you doing this presentation for us. Thanks, Nissan.
I was very timid when it came to me with sociocracy, because I like to trust things that I can understand. And at first, it was so different. It was hard for me to understand it. And I like to see, like, try to figure out, like, would this work? I'm trying to envision, it, like, in action. It took me, like I said, a couple of months actually going to meetings and actually trying it out to actually understand how it actually works. Because it was very difficult for me to picture it in my head, So, but once you actually get there and it's there and you're doing it, and you kind of like, and it slowly grew on me as I did it, because things started feeling a little more natural, feeling a little more like flowing. Because at that time, in the New York People's Party, which again is the New York People's Assembly now, we were using the standard Robert's Rules of Order. So I went from using Robert's Rules of Order, and then going into groups of sociocracy, and it really showed me like the difference between Robert's Rules of Order and sociocracy. Where Robert's Rules of Order, you could literally like ram things through, where the chair, that person who runs the meetings, really holds a lot of power. He really he could really essentially pick and choose what he wants to get covered. Whereas a sociocracy, I mean, the facilitator is only there to like clarify and to make sure the meeting's running in order, but his main goal is to make sure everybody has their voice heard. I mean, we don't really care getting something done as much as we care about making sure everybody is listened to. That's why I kind of I wanted to include the Washington's D3 model to show that there are, systems that are in between, not just the two ends. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I really hope your automatic facilitation system works out, and I would like to see it in action. That was awesome.